The wind howled across the Arizona plains, rolling in waves over the dry grass and red dirt. The sun hung low, bleeding orange into the sky. A lone rider, hat pulled low against the glare, guided his horse toward a figure slumped beside a rocky ridge. He hadn't meant to find her. He was just checking the fence line near the old creek when he saw the smoke, faint, thin, rising from what looked like a dying campfire. As he got closer, he saw her, an Apache girl, no older than 20, her clothes torn and dusty, blood on her shoulder, and a look in her eyes that stopped him cold. He pulled the reins and slowed the horse. "You all right there?" he called out. She didn't answer at first. She just looked up, breathing hard, hand gripping something, a small knife, dull from use. "Don't come closer," she said, her voice cracked and weak. He raised both hands. "Easy now, ain't looking for trouble." For a long moment, neither moved. The wind carried the smell of smoke and iron. Then the girl's grip loosened, the knife slipping from her fingers. She fell forward into the dirt. The rancher, his name was Samuel Reed, jumped off his horse and ran to her. He turned her gently, and for the first time, saw the wound clearly. A bullet hole through her side, half cleaned, bandaged with torn cloth. She must have been running for days. He pressed his hand against the bandage. "You've lost too much blood," he muttered. "What the hell happened to you?" Her lips trembled. "Soldiers came to our camp, took my brother, killed the rest." Samuel felt his chest tighten. He'd heard the stories, raids on Apache camps, skirmishes nobody wanted to talk about. It was ugly business, but to see it like this, right in front of him, was something else. He lifted her carefully and set her on his horse. "I'm talking you to my ranch. Got supplies there." She tried to resist, weakly. "No, they'll come looking. They'll kill you too." He shook his head. Let him try. By the time they reached his ranch, night had swallowed the plains. Coyotes howled in the distance. He laid her down on a cot inside the barn and lit a lantern. The yellow light flickered across her face. She was barely conscious, whispering something in her language, words he didn't understand. He cleaned her wound as best he could, poured whiskey over it, and wrapped it again with fresh cloth. She cried out once, biting down on a strip of leather, but didn't stop him. When he finished, he sat beside her, running a hand through his dust-covered hair. "You'll be all right," he said quietly, though he wasn't sure he believed it. Her eyes opened, dull but steady. "Why help me?" He shrugged. "Guess I couldn't ride on and pretend I didn't see." She studied him for a long second. "You're not like them." He looked away. "Maybe not, but I've done things I ain't proud of either." Outside, the wind picked up again, rattling the barn doors. Samuel fed his horse, then came back and sat on an overturned bucket, watching her drift in and out of sleep. He thought of the last time he saw soldiers, men he'd served with years ago, during the skirmishes near Fort Bowie. He'd left that life behind, or at least, tried to. Sometime after midnight, she stirred again. Her breathing was shallow now, her skin pale. He could tell she was fading. "Water," she whispered. He brought her the tin cup, held it to her lips. She took a few sips, then pushed it away. "What's your name?" he asked. "Nichia," she murmured. "My mother." She said it means courage. He smiled faintly. Fitting name. Her eyes glistened in the lantern light. Courage didn't help today. He didn't know what to say. Sometimes silence was the only thing that made sense. Hours passed. The fire outside burned low, the air heavy and still. Samuel leaned against a post, half asleep, when he heard her whisper again, soft, almost like a prayer. "End it now, please." He blinked, unsure if he heard right. "What did you say?" She looked at him, her eyes wet but steady. "Please, end it. I can't fight anymore." The words cut through him. He felt his throat tighten. "No," he said, "you're hurt bad, but you'll pull through. I've seen worse." She shook her head weakly. "No, you haven't. The bullet, it's deep. I can feel it. I can't breathe right. My spirit's already gone." He swallowed hard, turning away. "Don't talk like that." She reached for his hand, surprising him with her strength. "You don't understand. If they find me alive, they'll make me suffer. Please, let me go while I still have a choice." Samuel froze. The fire cracked softly in the distance. His hand trembled as he looked at her, this broken, bleeding girl asking him for mercy. He'd killed before, in war. He'd pulled the trigger without thinking, without mercy. But this was different. "I can't," he whispered. She squeezed his hand, tears running down her cheeks. "You must. You've got kindness in you. Don't let me die in pain." He stood and backed away, shaking his head. "No, there's got to be another way." But deep down, he knew there wasn't. He went outside, took a long breath of the cold desert air, and stared at the stars. The sky looked endless, like a great sea of fire and dust. He thought about God, justice, and the line between mercy and murder. When he went back inside, Nichia was still awake. She was humming softly, a tune that sounded like an old lullaby. He knelt beside her. "You got family left?" She smiled faintly. "My brother, maybe." He ran toward the mountains. Samuel's voice cracked. "I'll find him, I promise." She nodded. "Then do this, for me." The room went quiet. The air seemed to stop moving. Samuel reached for his revolver. His hand shook so bad he almost dropped it. "You sure?" he asked. She met his eyes. Yes. For a long moment, he couldn't move. The world seemed frozen, just the two of them, trapped between life and death. Then, slowly, he took off his hat and placed it over his heart. "God forgive me," he whispered. He aimed, closed his eyes, and pulled the trigger. The sound was deafening in the silence. When it was over, he sat there, breathing hard, tears streaming down his face. He placed his coat over her body and stayed beside her until dawn. When the first light broke, he dug a grave near the ridge overlooking the valley. He marked it with a small wooden cross and carved one word into it: courage. As he stood there, hat in hand, he whispered, "I kept my promise." Days turned into weeks. Samuel went back to fixing fences, mending the roof, feeding the horses, but something inside him had changed. He couldn't shake the sound of her voice or the way her eyes had looked when she said thank you. One morning, he rode out toward the mountains, following faint tracks in the dirt, old, almost gone. Maybe her brother was still out there, maybe not, but he needed to try. He rode until the sun set behind the hills. In the quiet of the desert, he stopped his horse and looked up at the stars again. For the first time in years, he said a prayer, not for himself but for her. Weeks later, travelers passing through the valley sometimes saw a lone man by a small grave on the ridge. They said he never stayed long, just stood there, hat pressed to his chest, whispering something no one could hear. Some said he was haunted. Others said he'd found peace. But those who knew him best said Samuel Reed never spoke of that night again. He just carried on, quieter than before, a little slower, a little sadder, the kind of man who looked at the sunset like it held secrets he'd never tell. And sometimes, when the wind blew across the plains, carrying whispers from the canyons, he'd think he heard her voice again, soft, calm, and free. "Thank you." He'd close his eyes, bow his head, and whisper back, "Rest easy now, Nichia. It's over." Then he'd ride off into the fading light, the land stretching wide and lonely, the sky painted in the same deep red as the day they met, the day he learned that mercy can be the hardest kind of love.